Okay, I'll restate that. So our chair and vice chair aren't here today, and we'd be looking to kick off this meeting by entertaining a motion to appoint a chair pro tem.
So moved.
Who would we like to appoint for that? Anybody in the meeting could be volunteered.
I would motion for you as we had done yesterday, if that's works for other folks.
That's fine by me.
I second that.
Okay. And any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition? Hearing none, that motion passes. All right, everybody, welcome to the Thursday, June 6, 2024 IBC tag meeting. Today we'll be working on our reports. And the reports are for the existing amendments reports, the significant changes reports. At our last meeting, we tabled chapter 16 until Roger can be back with us. And we approved chapter 9. So the next one here we're looking at today will be chapter 11, but we got some other stuff first. So I'll complete a roll call real quick. First off is Todd Bayruther, who is absent. We have Roger Haringa, who is also absent as the chair alternate. Architect primary Joe Mayo.
Present.
Thank you. Alternate Che Fortaleza.
Present.
Thank you. For building official primary Tim Woodard. I'm not seeing him in the group today. Alternate Steve Belzak. Steve, I'm not sure if you've joined your audio to the meeting today, but I see you in the guest list. Moving to Fire Services Representative, primary Dan Young.
Present.
Thank you. Alternate Lance Dahl.
He's not going to be here today.
Gotcha. I think I got a message about that just earlier. It's just escaping my attention at the moment. Cities and Counties primary Hoyt Jeter.
I'm here.
Thank you. Alternate Sean Karlstrom. Not seeing in the room today. For general contractor or developer primary will Bill Mybush.
Present.
Thank you. For structural engineer primary Joshua Mergens.
Present.
Thank you. For the alternate Trent Tenney. Moving to building owner property manager primary Brett Conway. Not seeing him in our attendance today. General public subject matter experts Michael Barth as the primary.
I'm present.
Thank you. And for the alternate Leah Summer. And Leah, I see you on here. It looks like you're not joined with your audio either. I don't see an option to ask you to unmute. Then for State Enforcement Agency primary Paul Clark.
Here.
Thank you. And for Fire Protection Engineers primary Andy Leonto.
Present.
All righty, thank you.
Dustin, Steve Belzak here too. I think I didn't have my computer audio on.
Yes.
So
I marked you as present. I saw you in the
Okay.
attendees list.
All right, great, thanks.
We have 9 out of 11 members here today, so we have a quorum established. Next on our agenda would be review and approve the agenda. Something I'd like to note on this one, we sent out these agendas before the work completed yesterday, and so there's some items on here that no longer belong here. Oh, sorry. So I would just say, just keep that in mind as we approve this one. So we'll be looking to entertain a motion to approve the agenda or alter it if anybody sees fit.
I mean, I'm just curious, what are you modifying? Sorry about that. This is Hoyt.
Right
mean-
now, I'm not modifying anything. I just wanted to let everybody know that we have some stuff that we did at the previous meeting yesterday that is not reflective on this agenda. So, essentially, chapter 9 should be removed from this agenda, and table or chapter 16 should be removed from the agenda as well, because we're not going to cover that if we get to that point today.
Oh, okay. Then I make a motion to approve the agenda with those clarifications that were just told to me.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Alrighty, and I wasn't looking. Who was that spoke on that one?
That was Mike Barth.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right. Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing no hands. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition? All right, that motion passes. Next on our agenda, we have the review and approval of the June 5th, 2024 meeting minutes.
I make a motion to approve June 5th minutes.
Roseanne, are you planning on putting those up on the screen for us?
Well, I thought they were emailed to us. I thought I saw them earlier.
They're sent out as well. They've been distributed.
Oh, okay.
We're having some technical difficulties on that screen share right there. Do we have a second on the motion?
I second. This is Bill.
Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing no hands, all those in favor say aye.
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 Is there any opposition? All right, that motion passes. All right, let me bring up a different screen share now. So on a line, just so we can continue with the stuff that we had available for anybody to look at, I would like to continue with chapter 11 at this point. Yeah. Let me open that up, and Brett Conway was the one who did the work on this one. He's not here, so let me change that, and we will skip over to 14 and 15 here, which, now that I'm looking at it, is not on my stuff. So hold on. Let me make sure I'm getting the right chapters out for everybody to look at. I'm going off of the stuff that we have published online. I need to pull up our assignments list. Okay, this list will take a couple seconds to open up because for some reason Excel doesn't want to work with me. Bear with me, guys. I apologize. Okay, here we go. All right, looking at the IBC, I should have 1415 in my folder here for quick access, but it's not there. So I'm going to say, let's move on to 18 here. And 18 was done by Josh Mergens.
Yes.
And coming up here, let me just move some stuff out of my way. And all right, so we are ready to rock and roll on 18. Looking through here, there's only one amendment in this whole chapter. It's in section 1807, and then we have quite a few things identified on the significant changes report. There we go. So scrolling through 1803.5.1, looks like we've got a small amendment, no cost, no amendment recommended. 1803.5.2, similar, a little bit of cost, but no amendment recommended for that. And I guess as we go through these, if anybody has comments, go ahead and raise your hand. I'll notice that. Or if you want to just go ahead and interject, I'll be happy to pause as I'm going through here. I'm going to try to roll through this chapter pretty quick. 1805.3 has some additional language. We have a reference standard dependent on here. So, Josh, on this one, what do you mean by the reference standard dependent for the cost on this?
So what I mean by that is, certainly I don't believe that we're called to review in the entirety all new updated documents. So as I said in the comments, there's no changes directly from the IBC, but of course, when we adopt a new set of standards, unless we were to, review those standards in their entirety, we can't make a claim that there's no cost increase. So the IBC does not contain a cost increase, but by referencing a new standard, there are potential for cost increases, but I don't claim to be an expert in that particular ASTM.
Gotcha. Okay. So moving on. 1803.5.4 for groundwater. We have some additional cost identified.
Yes, and that's because there's a greater need for geotechnical reports where there were exceptions that were allowing geotechnical reports in fewer situations. We now need them more, thus the conclusion of cost increase.
Gotcha. And moving on, go ahead.
Oh, no, go for it.
Okay. Clicking some stuff off the screen, one moment. Okay. 1803.5.6 for rock strata. No cost identified, no amendment identified as being needed. 1807.2.5 is our next spot. So we'll scroll through here pretty quick. There we are for guards. Add provisions for guards at retaining walls. A little bit of cost, but no one needed. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying it was retaining walls because it was cut off, but you beat me to it.
Yeah, I added up to it. So anyway, good. Moving on to 1807.3. Let me check. 1807.2.2. Where was this? I skipped over that, so apologies. For design lateral soil loads, measured to the bottom of the footing is where our amendment lies on that one, and the recommendation is to maintain the amendment, sorry. And anybody have any comments on the one state amendment to this chapter?
No, that's actually the way. It's always what's confusing for people, where to measure when they're doing the height of the wall. I thought that was already in the building code. That I know we took that to the
Yeah.
national level. I thought it actually changed it to that to clarify it. I didn't know that was a state amendment. I thought we had that in there. I'll have to look.
And perhaps somewhere in other definitions, Hoyt, I'd be interested to know that myself. To be honest, when I saw the amendment, I was surprised that that's not what we were all doing. But I know, like you said, I've seen disagreement amongst folks about whether or not they measure to the top of the footing or not. But it seems most geotechnical texts agree we should be measuring to the base of the footing.
Yeah, and then when you design it, though, when you're designing the wall for the moments and stuff
Sure.
like that, you measure to the top of the footing. But that's for design stuff. But this was pretty clear.
And if there is something in the IBC that clarifies it, please do let us know and we can see if this amendment's still needed. I had looked around and I didn't see it, but I'll admit it was a little while ago that I filled out this particular chapter and I don't remember my specifics.
Gotcha.
Oh no, I might just be remembering because I always do that, so that's why I just.
You got your hands in a lot of things. We can expect it. Thank you, sir.
All right, we covered 1807.25 already. 1807.3, small, looks like reference standard change.
They added an additional standard which we can use through the IBC, so they gave us more options.
Yeah, so no cost, no amendment needed. 1808.8.6. So next spot to take a peek at. All right, on this one, seismic design category C is now required to follow the provisions of ACI 318, section 18.3. Yeah, what is the change? It's just, oh, they added C. It's easy to
Yes,
miss.
so
Okay.
a broader range of sites now are required to follow these provisions.
Okay. 1808. We already did 0.6. Sorry, 1809.14 or 1809.6. We have adjacent in here. It's not in the
overlook one?
That's okay.
I think I just consider that editorial.
Yeah, I don't think we need to add a line for that one. 1809.14. We have some new language with no added cost, no amendment recommended. 1810.2.2. And stability with an exception with some added language. Potential cost, and we have the amendment, yes or no being needed is blank. So it sounds like we have some discussion on this one.
Oh, shoot, no, it looks like I kind of stopped placing. I don't believe that an amendment should be needed here. I don't know how I got carried away not writing that. I don't believe I had a recommendation for any amendments in this chapter. So this next
Okay,
item.
I'll go ahead and fill that down.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. 1810.3.3.2. 3 point. Here we are. No, not quite. 18.3.3. 8.2, allowable lateral load. No additional cost, no amendment required. Just some clarifying language added. 1810.3.8. Here we are. Precast concrete piles. No additional cost, no amendment identified.
I should mention, I'm seeing a typo here. I say in my comment, site class designations are updated to be consistent with ASCE 716. That should be 22. I apologize for that.
Gotcha. All right. 1810.3.9.4.2.1.
And I marked potential cost on this because it's fairly subtle. So could there be situations where increases cost? Yes. I don't know if we would call this a direct cost increase as much as a clarification, but it could result in minor cost increases on our project.
Okay. And this one, I assume.
Yeah, the
is-
one thing is they've broken up more site classes, just FYI. So a lot of that stuff you're throwing in more of the site classes. They're having, rather than having 4, they're starting to have B, C, C, D, D, E, things like that. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was that 1810.3.9.4.2.1 we were talking about. We're on to the 1812.3.12.
oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit behind.
We're moving fast. I get it.
Yeah. I'm flipping through my code at the same time. So
Gotcha. And just so everybody knows, this won't be the last time we get a chance to look at all this, but the next time we do, we'll be trying to look at the book as a whole on this one. So if we want to dive into a little bit more, now would be the time, probably the more appropriate time to do it if we want to talk about some specific sections, and I'm happy to go back and check them out too. 12.3.12. Is this it? Maybe here. This one was had a little bit of weirdness in here. Had a 0 after 1812. So
That should have been 1810.3.12,
okay.
which I thought is where we were just discussing, but maybe I'm mistaken.
no, that's what I thought too. I thought that's where we were at also.
Yeah, we're here now.
Excellent.
Gotcha. Potential costs, but no amendment identified. And then 18. Go
Just
ahead.
to let you know on that, just what they did is they actually told you exactly where to go. So there really isn't. It used to say just go to ASCE 7. All right, now they kind of actually clarified it. I remember that when they were talking about this at the hearing. So really, there is no. I don't believe when I remember from the hearings, there's no technical change. So
That would make sense to me, and I think it would be appropriate to change potential to a no then. I was a little surprised to see these ones because it seemed like nothing new, but now that you've explained that, wait, that makes perfect sense.
yeah, and I'm sorry I didn't remember about the other ones. I do remember about this one on grade beams because I do a lot of big green beam reviews. So
Perfect. Thanks, sir.
Awesome. And 1810.4.5. Right here, vibratory driving has some added guidance for installation of production elements. No direct cost identified, no amendment identified. And with that, that brings us to the end of chapter 18. Do we want to discuss any of those sections in any further detail? All right, seeing no hands, we'd be looking to entertain a motion to approve chapter 18 to the master document to review at a later time.
I make a motion to approve to move chapter 18 to the master document.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on chapter 18? All right, seeing no hands, all those in favor of moving chapter 18 to the master document, please say aye.
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 Is there any opposition? Hearing none, that motion passes. Yeah, update some stuff over here on my end. All right, so moving on to the next one that I have some stuff from. Joshua, did you work on chapter 20 or did Roger submit that one?
That was Roger. I have 21 and 22.
Okay, then we will skip over that one and we will go to chapters 21 and 22 for now. So let me save these monsters.
Hey Dustin, while you're saving those, this is Tim. I joined about 15 minutes late on the meeting.
Gotcha. I have you marked as present now.
And isn't it also when we have our first meeting all together, he's buying lunch for everybody? I thought that's what the
Yeah,
motion
I
was
do
made.
remember something about that.
And it got second, and we
That's
all
only if my
voted.
cell phone went on.
It was all approved.
Don't forget the beer.
All righty.
And Dustin, I apologize. I'll have to correct myself. I didn't see a spreadsheet for chapter 20, but I did in fact have it. But there is about 3 lines of text that remain unchanged and no amendments. So there's no work to do on chapter 20.
Okay, then I'll just hold off on it for now. And so there's no work needed on chapter 20. Are we saying, let me open up that assignment spreadsheet again.
And it was mine. I just didn't see the Excel sheet,
Oh.
so I thought I didn't have it. Then
Okay.
I noticed I have the chapter 20 document open it. If you open it and share, everyone will see it's 3
Okay.
lines of text.
Yeah, and there's no amendments to the section. Okay, yeah, we might as well cover it then.
Yeah, they just kicked you to the standards, just FYI. I know about this in the aluminum one.
Okay.
So
we're gonna have some significant time to spend on this one, it looks like. I guess no existing amendments and no recommended amendments for changes. Entertain a motion to move chapter 20 to our master document.
make a motion to move chapter 20 to the master document.
All right, Hoyt in a second.
Second.
Does that Josh beat everybody out?
Yeah, I think so. It's a race.
Sure.
All righty. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All righty, that motion passes. Thank you for taking a quick look at that, Josh. All right, moving on to chapter 21. There it is. All right. Moving through, not a whole lot of state amendments in this chapter. No significant changes identified in here. And let's see, chapter 21 was done by Josh as well. So I'm having to go back and look at my sheet. I know you just said it, but it's not sticking in my brain. Okay, so chapter 21, we'll skip over here. 2103.2.4, we'll just scroll down to that one. 2.4, here we are, with the recommendation to maintain the existing amendment unless the information is consistent in TMS 402.2 or -22.
Apologize for another typo. That should be inconsistent.
Gotcha. Is
And I evidently copy pasted it.
Not a problem. All right. So that one, no recommendation to change that one. Highlight it.
Hang on, the only thing there is, that's the ANSI standard, right? But the mortar and stuff, correct me, is TMS. It's in the TMS code. that's the masonry standards, right? And I think the TMS, I'll have to open it up because I do have it. Did you look at the TMS?
I do
before
not
it's-
have a TMS 40222.
Oh, okay, because I this is adhering masonry. I believe, now I could be wrong. I think we should just verify because I think this was dealt in the TMS updated codes for this adhering to masonry veneer. I remember California talking about this stuff when they were adhering to it. I just don't remember top of my head. But I don't think we should keep it in if it's already in the TMS because you may be separate from the standard. So I think anytime they have the standards that we're referencing to in the it's a good idea to just open it up.
Sure. Does anyone know the history of why because that's what we're erasing is the reference to the TMS.
Well,
Do
that's
we know-
because it's in the reference standard already. If you go to the reference standards, they take you to the TMS 402. I could try opening up that code. I have it.
Yeah, that would be information. But I guess what I'm getting at is, does anyone here know why it was previously decided that we were not okay with referencing section 13.3 of the TMS and had amended the code to include this new language? Maybe it'd be best just have you compare, Hoyt, since you have the book. That, I mean, if it's the same.
Yeah, I got it.
Agree with you.
I can't do it that fast.
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
If you want me to double check on that, I'm sorry. I just don't. I got to go to my masonry.
So I have that one marked as a verify the reference in the TMS document is consistent with the state amendment. You think that'd be a good?
What was the TMS reference? I just opened the TMS. Oh, darn it. It just kicked me out of it.
No problem. It was 13.3.
No, what year? That's the only thing.
22?
16.
It was
No.
the
What was the TMS? It's in the reference standard.
The TMS is TMS 40222 is what they're referencing in the reference standard
Oh, okay.
in chapter 35.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind just emailing that to me.
Yeah, sure.
Emailing me what that is to recheck that. That would be great. I don't know if you guys all have this problem, but you have the locked in, you get the electronic copy, and every now and then, I don't know why I have to do this, but I got to re-put in the number that I bought it with so it could reopen and unlock it. It's so frustrating. I already paid for it. I don't know why I have to do it every now and then. I don't know if anyone else has that problem. It happens with the ACI, it does the same thing.
So Dustin,
I could argue the same thing for hours.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I don't know why you have to every single time put in your long 16 days in code that you bought it for. And sometimes you don't have to. I don't know. So I'm just
Dustin, would we be able to look at the rest of these and perhaps table chapter 21 pending this one item so that we can circle back, verify, and make sure we've got the right recommendation for the council?
We could do that, and what I was actually thinking is we could flag this one section with the other comments in here to verify that reference is correct and make sure that we have it flagged in our final report. And we can maybe touch it when we do the final report review.
I just got it open. Sorry. So what was that section?
13.3.
13.3. Order.
I think that sounds great, Dustin. And one thing that I would throw out there, just because it's come up multiple times now, is, if we did modify the last code section that did reference 13.3 to this change in language, even if we thought there was a recommended change, it would take a code proposal at this point, right?
Correct.
So it could be something that really up at that final report, like you were saying.
Yes.
13.3. Yeah, I think that the 13s, that's for glass unit masonry. Just FYI.
Oh, that's something I'll have to talk to ICC about. That's just what's in their code.
Yeah, so
Perhaps that's what's spurred the need for an amendment. But I think I agree with other folks here. Maybe we should move on to the other items in
Yeah.
the interest of time and keep this flagged.
yeah, 13.3 in the code is for glass unit masonry panels.
Then it seems probably appropriate to keep the amendment because that's not the section that should be referenced.
Plus,
Okay.
it's pulling in the other ANSI standards. So I think it's safe just to say keep them in the amendment.
Yeah. There's a mistake in there. I think they moved it somewhere else. That's why.
Thank you for verifying, Hoyt.
Do we need to leave this note on here and we'll just take it off then? For verifying that reference, or we've kind of verified it and say the amendment's good to go?
I suggest we leave it on for now. Would others agree?
Well, veneer just as a prescriptive one, that's actually in chapter 12. So chapter 12 is all the prescriptive design for veneer. So I bet you the reference wasn't for, it was supposed to be for chapter 12. That's my guess.
I think that's another good reason to keep it. So I would say I'm not going to look into it any further, and I don't hear anybody else's either. So we could
No, but
remove.
when you say keep it, do you mean keep the 2103.2.4, that one?
Well, yeah, they're both 2302.4 or 2103.2.4, but it's more like keep the state amendment.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It doesn't reference the right section even. So
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I'm sure that's going to come out as an errata.
Okay.
All right, perfect. Then let's go ahead and move on from this one.
Take the note out, or was that just to clarify one more time? Keep the note or leave the note?
I suggest remove the note.
I agreed.
agreed.
Thanks everyone for
Moved.
through that together.
All right, most of the rest of this is going to be inconsequential. Looks like we're getting to 2111.8 through 2111.8.1. You just say the rest of the blue text is either some just editorial stuff in there.
Yeah, so under the significant changes portion, I pointed out they changed the numbering in the TMS. So there's just a significant number of numbering changes, but they're not changing any substance.
Gotcha. Here's the next state amendment. All right. For the recommendation, language is included under a different section number, see 2111.8.2 below in green. Recommend renumbering the amendment to not conflict with the model code numbering. So this would just be a editorial change on this one, just placing it appropriately.
Not only an editorial change, we do have an existing amendment that inserts some additional information in the code. However, the numbering in the IBC was different when the amendment was written than how it's written now, and it was slightly reorganized so that the amendment numbering doesn't fit into the model code numbering. So that's why I was suggesting a change to the amendment so that it fits in the numbering better. I think it came down to the addition of this damper provision. I believe we had added a subsection that later the IBC used that subsection. So we had called it 211.8.1 to go under this 211.8, but we've added 211.8.1, and maybe it would be best if we could open up the WAC so folks could see it. It took me a few minutes to figure out what in the heck was going on, but it's just a numbering issue.
Okay,
So yeah, we replaced 2118 with two provisions, 2118 and 2118.1, but there's now a 2118.1 in the model code that's separate from this conversation.
And so, okay, the Second Amendment would just need to be renumbered, but the First Amendment is numbered appropriately then?
Well, this is one amendment. Both of these are one amendment. There's two provisions in this one single amendment, and that's what's making this kind of problematic.
Okay.
If you go to the 2021 code, you'll see that this plugs in just fine because there is no 2111.8.1.
Okay.
Actually, it does show up in the 21 code. I think we just never corrected the numbering.
Oh, so it does. Perhaps I mistakenly looked at the 18 when I said it wasn't there, but it does look like regardless, the numbering should get corrected.
Yeah, because I don't think the amendment was intended to replace the damper paragraph.
Agreed.
Yeah, that wasn't supposed to replace it. This is supposed to be an addition, right?
So in the 21 code, are we saying that there's an error right here in this section? And there's a missing section?
So
Yeah, it
well,
looks like it's in the damper section. Just got written out of the code.
did it actually get written out of the code, or was the damper not in the 21 code that's not modified by Washington?
I'm pulling
Well,
that.
Based on the 24 code not showing it in blue writing, that would be the assumption, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Very good point.
And in the 21 code, there's no bar on it, so it may have been even earlier than that. But yeah, as you have it on the right of the screen in the green with the red, adding the number 2 instead of number 1 corrects the assumed flaw.
Yeah, looks like it got written out of the code in our Washington Amendment.
But written out would have taken an amendment, and there wasn't an amendment, so it's just an error.
Yeah, I think
Correct.
just it was an error. It was an error. So
So let me make some notes on this error because that's a different topic. Okay. So let me take that down, take that down. Okay, so with the maintain the existing amendment, renumber, make sure we keep the damper section in there. And as far as the placement of these two amendments, does everybody agree that the 21118 should go where it's at here, and then the lintel and throat should go below the damper?
I don't think it matters, but to be consistent with the model code, I think the way he has it is the best way to do it.
Okay.
Agreed.
yeah, I agree also.
And we wouldn't, I'll have to look into it, but I don't think if we inadvertently remove damper in the last season, we shouldn't need a proposal for changing the numbering of these in this section in our process of kind of placing them appropriately in the code. So I'll move on from that one. The next one is 2115.1 and 2115.2. Here we are with the recommendation to maintain the amendments as depicted here.
And I will point out that my recommendation to maintain the amendment is out of ignorance of emission standards, but it looked like people put some good hard work into this. So if anyone's more familiar with emission standards or why this amendment was put in here, by all means, please let us know. But it seems to me that it was with intention, and that's about the best information I have.
Yeah, that's been in there for a while, and yeah, it was intentional. It's basically our state is a little more restrictive than on the national, and I wanted to make sure that the emission standards were met, and so it was on purpose.
Excellent. Thank you.
Gotcha. So with that, that brings us to the end of chapter 21. We'd be looking to entertain a motion to move that chapter.
I'll make a motion to move chapter 21 to the master document.
Second.
Any more conversation on the movement of chapter 21? Seeing no hands, and Bill, did you want to say something? You unmuted?
Sorry about that.
No good.
Nope.
All right, all those in favor of moving chapter 21 to our master document, please say aye.
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 I
Is there any opposition? Hearing none, that motion passes. And
Dustin, on a side note, the that damper issue 8.1 apparently was even in the 2015. So when you're researching that, you may need to reach back even
Gotcha.
further.
so we removed it in the 2015 code. as
We
well?
removed it prior to the 15.
Okay,
I don't know how much prior, because that's as far back as I have on my current shelf, but I'd have to get into boxes to go further than that.
we'll dig that one down and see about the origin of the amendment and see if it just I don't know. We'll see where it leads to on that one. If they purposely removed it, or maybe a section got moved around or something and just
Yeah.
inadvertently not covered up.
Yeah, as we discussed, I'm going to guess it was an error, but we just haven't caught it until now.
All right. So we've done 21. Next, we're going to get into 22. All right, here's 22's spreadsheet, and I don't have the 22.
I make a recommendation to approve. There's no changes in there. I know that already.
None that we want to mess with.
Well, nobody is for structural. Nobody makes changes to these things. So,
Yeah, so there were a few small things in here, but largely as I'm scrolling through and reminding myself, they were adding guidance for systems that were previously not in the IBC. So I've listed them as no cost increase because it's accommodating new systems, not modifying the existing. There's some updated references to AISI as specific.
You mean ANSI? You're talking about some references to some of the ANSI stuff. And
No, I'm talking about AISI.
That's a cold form steel. Yeah, the cold form steel stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Some additional guidance for industrial boltless steel shelving. Really everything from my perspective, and we could look at it one by one by all means, but everything from what I can tell, it sounds like Hoyt, you've seen the same thing. It's just adding systems or clarifying language. There's no amendments to review, and largely all of this gets kicked to AISC and AISI.
Yeah, that's
All right, so we had a first on that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second this bill.
Okay. Any further discussion on moving chapter 22 to our master document? Seeing no hands, hearing no voices, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposition? Hearing none, that motion passes. And 22 taken care of. Next on our tour of the IBC, we're going to look at chapter 23. And chapter 23 was completed by Trent Tinney. Has a few amendments in it. That's just the insertions of stuff. Okay. Shouldn't take us too long on this one. If you guys see this EAR staff update tab down here, that's where we've started prepping this document to be included in the master document. And I guess we can work from that one here. It looks complete. So our first amendments in 2303.1.1.3, and Trent isn't on here with us today. Does anybody feel that we should not hit this chapter while he's away for any reason?
Oh, I'm very familiar with all these changes.
Okay, then let's hit it and just keep the work train moving. And then as far as significant changes, 2304 is the first change in there identified. So 2303.1.1.3, use solid sawn lumber with the recommendation to keep the existing amendment.
Yeah, so here's what's weird about this, just to let people know. This also is dealt in the International Existing Building Code when you're using used solid sawn lumber. But this is good to keep in the in our model code, because for us up here, we always have hem-fir is the worst case, hem-fir number 2. And so it, that's kind of pretty much our wood that we have up here in the Northwest. So this, all the engineers, this is what they use in the International Existing Building Code when they're using solid saw lumber. So
Yeah, agreed. As somebody doing a lot of that work, definitely agree.
yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, it's good to keep it. It's
The next
gives
one.
directions to the designers outside the state, basically.
Okay. We got the next one is 2303.6. Let's double check that I didn't miss something here in the 2304.
What was that 20? What was the section again? Sorry.
We're moving towards 2303.6 as the next section for review. I just wanted to see if there was anything in the significant changes report for these sections here with blue, but
No, what they did in that is I believe the 23 design, they added staples is what I remember. Oh, but I see we have something about fire retardant wood. I thought they had that somewhere else.
On its surface, it looks like it's just given another alternative, which again, it doesn't increase costs, doesn't change anything, it just gives another alternative.
Gotcha. Here we are, nails and staples. This is where we just have an existing amendment where we add staples and allowable bending moments. with the recommendation, the model code changes are editorial, no effect on cost, keep the state amendment to this section.
Yeah, I'm actually it because staples have been coming in more and more, and I always thought that was weird because you already give the gauges and all that stuff. You already have the specifications for ASTM F1667. I've never understood why you had to put the allowable bending moment. Should be listed on the construction documents, but
That
But-
strikes me as unusual as well, Hoyt.
Yeah.
Maybe it's worth discussion at the proposal phase because I don't know that we are adding any additional information of value to anyone that's not already readily available.
yeah, I think they put it in before because when the staples were new, because that was something new that came into the code. I remember when it came in, they wanted to make sure, the 16 gauge, and it says right there 4-inch pounds. See what it says right there, 4-pound inch. I mean, it's already in the code. In the past, that I don't think that was in there. So I could be wrong on that, but to be honest, if you have a 16 gauge staple, 4-inch pounds, I mean, you pretty much, I mean, you have it. So I mean, it's like, I don't. I
Okay.
think it's a silly amendment. We should take it out personally, but
I suppose the one thing, Hoyt, and I'll admit I'm less familiar with this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but is what they're saying simply just that they want that allowable moment listed on the plans because people are listing just their 16 gauge and that's all they're listing, and they want to ensure that people are knowing the correct moment, or is there anything else that you can think of that would necessitate that on the construction documents? I can't think of
no,
any.
the only thing is it was more for the designers and plan reviewers out there, and the inspectors didn't care.
Yeah.
What was important is, and I know this is going to sound stupid, but staples, people were using staples that didn't have those bending moments, and then staple guns and stuff.
Mhm.
I don't think that's the case anymore, but I could be wrong. I mean, it doesn't matter to keep it on there, but that was the main reason to have that because it's a listed thing from ASTM F1667. I mean, if you got the box that has that listing, right, which is written right on the box, you meet that. So it's because staples were new. You remember that? That's kind of been
Mhm.
new in the code.
Sure.
And that was the main reason why I was put in there, to put the allowable bending moment. I'm like, why wouldn't you put the shear also? See what I'm saying? So I mean, it's silly. So
Well, maybe we can circle back to that in the proposal phase and see if there's any reason we can see to leave it or if there should be a discussion.
I mean, if you look at it, look what it says: 15 gauge staples, 4-inch pounds. I mean, it's there.
Yeah, I guess the difference though is I know it lists those there, but it doesn't say that it needs to be listed on the construction document anywhere. Not that I necessarily disagree with you by any means. I just think we should look into it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fine leaving it too. I mean, I'm just telling you, some engineers and the code reviews that I've done here at Tacoma and stuff, they're like, come on.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you, I just learned about this moments ago, and I've been doing engineering for 12 years now, and I've never included this, so I hear where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And I'm not disagreeing or arguing it either. Yeah, and I've never called it out either. It did, however, just show up in the 2018. This was not an amendment in 15, so
Well, that's because staples weren't allowed then. That's the
yeah.
reason. So
we should look
15,
at
you couldn't use staples. Now it has a listing. They have an actual ICC listing and all that stuff. Staples now are approved. So that's why it wasn't in the earlier codes.
So we should just look at the reason statement and then, yeah, kind of go from there.
So would it be for another comment on this one to maybe take a look at a potential recommendation to repeal this amendment because it doesn't add additional information or value to this section?
Well, the moment is 4-pound inches. Number 15 gauge, it's 4.3 pound inch. I mean,
Yeah, and for some folks on the line who might not understand why we're laughing so much, the moment is determined by the gauge, material, and geometry of the staple, which is already inherently in the staple. That's like saying we have to list the bending moments of wood as opposed to just the species.
Yeah, or like the bending of a 10-penny nail.
Yeah,
Come on.
that's a better example, actually.
Yeah, I don't
So
think I've ever included this in a plan review comment.
it's
But
one of those
that's-
things that
I don't think
I
your language is far off then. Like it just doesn't add any value.
right. This could be one of
I'd
the
say we
plan
should-
review comments where I don't ever pass a plan review on the first try, no matter what, guys, and this is how I do it.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that's our state amendment. Staples allowable bending moments shall be listed on the constructional documents. I think we should take that and not require that. But I think at the time when they first put it in for Staples, I think it was important. But now I don't think it is for how long it's been in there, a few cycles that we've gone.
I'm gonna mark it as red for potential removal. But I'm marking it red so that when we're going over the final report, if we can digest this section a little bit more, and maybe we can also talk to Trent on this one and see if he has any insight on why his recommendation is to keep that amendment.
I mean, it doesn't do anything bad. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a bad thing. It's just
You know,
doesn't accomplish anything.
one of our tasks here is to, reduce unnecessary amendments to that model code as well. So if this one doesn't add value and doesn't, address a particular concern, it'd be my opinion that it should
Okay.
be repealed.
Yeah.
All right, let me make sure we're not skipping over 2304.11.2.1 is our first significant amendment, which is actually aligns with one of our 2304.11.2.1. That's, I believe, what I meant to say. We're getting close. 11.2.1. Here we are. Partitions and walls, exterior walls, and yeah. So we'll hit this one first with the recommendation to keep the amendment in 2304.11.2.1. Any conversation on this one before I move to 2304.11.3.1?
Yeah, I could tell you why that came in is because people were not realizing it was nominal 4 inches, and so people were rejecting 2x4s or 4x members. Its actual thickness is 3.5, so that was why. So
I think it's a good clarification.
yeah, so I mean it's fine to have in there. It's good to have in.
2304.11.2.2, similar stuff. And I would say similar stuff for 11.3 and 11.3.1. I'd say we'll keep all those. And then we have 2304.11.4.1.
Yeah, the only thing I would say that on those ones that were changing, if you look at throughout the code, they write nominal, okay? And what we did in the state is just put the actual thickness, but other places in the code, you'll see nominal, just so everybody knows. Nominal is what you call it out as. The actual is actually a 4x, it's 3.5. So just, you'll see the conflicts between in the code. Some places it says actual thickness and some places it only says nominal. I just wanted to let people just be aware of that.
Gotcha.
If you're curious, I guess is the way I put it.
Well, I guess my curiosity would extend to, why didn't I, not that I really want to, but is there a reason why we didn't change nominal to actual thickness across the code?
Well, I mean, look at 2304.11.4.2. If you look at the code, right? If you read it, it will say, you'll see where it says 2-inch nominal in thickness, right? And so there you would say up above for cross-laminated timber roofs, because those are new, that was put in the code. You would say 3-inch nominal in thickness. So what happened, it said 3 inches in thickness. It didn't say nominal. So the actual, to technically be correct now, the way cross-laminated timber is, it's actually 3-inch nominal in thickness. But the problem is when it said 3 inches in thickness, because the manufacturers for the wood, I was at the hearings when they were talking about this. They meant it nominal. So just like you did in the other sections, like read 2311.4 sawn lumber, sawn and glue lam spline tongue groove shall not be less than 2 inches nominal in thickness. That's the way it actually should have been written, but it's okay. It's just, you're not changing anything. So I just want people to be aware of that.
Yeah, it's a good clarification, especially because those are the standard thicknesses that we can expect CLT panels in.
Yeah. And I think because it's a new material that's getting a lot of people, eventually I'm sure it's going to go, the code will eventually, the model code will eventually go to saying nominal.
Okay.
Should we keep everything in nominal in thickness rather than actual thickness then?
I'm giving
On
you my
this case?
personal belief. That's what I think, but that's my personal belief, because what happens is they didn't put nominal in the code originally. So people, when these cross-laminated timbers, which is, new, that it's a new type of material, they're making high-rise buildings out of these things now. These cross-laminated timber stuff, there were people that were saying you actually have to be 3 inches in actual thickness. Well, they're not manufacturing them that way. So, that was a problem.
This is Bill. I would recommend that we determine it one way or another and name it either nominal or actual, but it should be nominal.
That's what I think too. I think it should just be, if we're going to make a change, I think we should just say 3-inch nominal in thickness, but that's probably because I'm an engineer and I'm used to that. I'm not sure about other people. I mean,
I agree with you, but also an engineer. So
yeah.
And some of the code language is using actual thickness. So the code uses both, unfortunately.
Yeah,
and
that's correct.
Where we have these state amendments, generally it said neither. And that's I think why we needed or had the state amendments, because it wasn't said to be either nominal or actual. So the amendment just at least clarified one way or the other.
Yep, Mike's correct on that. But now that it's been out there for a while, it's nominal. Just FYI for you. So
yeah, and I think
national code
and I think
clean up.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think for this instance, since we're talking about similar sections here in chapter 23, I think putting it as nominal in thickness may make more sense, because the other similar requirements in this section seems to be talking about the nominal rather than the actual thickness.
Well, and just to make sure we're on the same page, it's saying 3-inch nominal or 2.5 actual is the exact same thing. It would just be a consistency in language, which I agree would make sense, but there's no substantial change, or there's no actualized change at all if we say 3-inch nominal versus 2.5-inch actual.
So do we want to flag this for an amendment in the future?
I don't know if it's worth it, but
okay. I was kind of thinking the same thing. I mean, if we change to the nominal language, the amendment would just, the state amendment would then just be the addition of one word, nominal, in the line here, and then if we leave it as is, it just stays as is and has no change in that regulatory effect.
Since it's editorial, do we need a proposal to do that?
I think that this one, because the state amendment exists in here to clarify the actual thickness in, in the, maybe the 3 inches would have been considered nominal in the practical application, that this one would probably require a proposal to change this back to a simpler terminology.
Yeah,
I think I like the idea of waiting for the national code to clean it up
Yeah,
and
that's
just go with whatever they choose to use.
Okay.
Agreed. This isn't going to confuse anyone in practice.
yeah. So you just keep it. So
And I know Todd was probably involved in this, so he has a lot more background in the back and forth here. I think there was some confusion as well that other sort of heavy timber components were a thickness that was allowed, and the 4-inch was pushing steel was more than was required for other heavy timber elements. And that was part of the reason too, just to clarify all that. So I think there was some other backstory here. And I would propose not keeping the state amendment and not changing this, because it was a very specific reason for doing this, but I don't have the full backstory.
Okay.
oh, I apologize. I was just giving you guys some history behind it. I wasn't saying to actually change it. I was just telling you why it came in there and all this stuff where the confusion was. So that was why.
2305.1.2. Looks like they've identified a potential for some cost increase. They didn't make a recommendation for an amendment to be here.
That came out of the NDS. Okay. That was from the SPIDWIZ and stuff, just to let you and I think we should stay with the model code. I remember this specifically being talked about this for permanent loading. So
I also don't know, maybe we want to talk to Trent first, but I don't know if this really constitutes an increase in cost. This is just how it should have been designed all along.
that's correct. That's correct.
We can change that here if you like.
I would suggest that we do, because that is what the NDS has required and what the practice would have required for a long time now. I think it's a good clarification that the model code did, but we should have all been in the loop on that.
So as far as clarification purposes on the stuff that we're talking about, the nominal discussion, the comment on this report is that it potentially saves money because it requires a 1/2 inch less of thickness. Is that a actual?
Not true.
That's
not
not true.
true is how I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
Although in the perceived enforcement, maybe it is true, but that's not what the text was intended to do. So should we amend these statements a little bit to say, I don't know, and these are actually significant change
it could
comments
be-
on existing amendments too.
All the comments could be to clarify the required actual thickness, but it's just clarification. It's not decreasing costs.
And Dustin, you just mentioned something important. This is the significant changes section. I don't know this is a significant change. It's our amendment that changed it, unless I'm mistaken about something.
Well, it's also included in the existing amendment report. So we've been looking at the same lines in these two ones. And so maybe we should just remove these from this report entirely.
My personal, just to let you know, if you have one that's actual 4 inches and then you have sawn lumber that you're using and it's 3.5, just giving you an example, how are you going to detail that? That's a very complicated, I mean, that just really screws up everything. So that's why I think there is no cost increase. It's the way they're built. So, I mean,
Yeah, I agree. I think the 4 top ones here that relate to this nominal size discussion are not significant changes.
I'm going to remove them from this page of the report. And
Agreed.
we just have them here with the recommendation to keep the existing amendment and no additional comments on it. Because I think everybody's on board with it. It clarifies the actual thickness and just makes it easier for folks to use a little bit. And
Agreed.
then for permanent load duration, just to come back to this one, I think we've identified no cost and no amendment needed for this section.
Correct.
You just may want to adjust the comment because it mentions decreased design strength and potential for increased cost. You know, I would say this is carrying over language from the NDS to clarify personally, not that I have to be the one dictating how it's read, but we want to make sure we don't have anything conflicting.
Yeah, that's exactly the same thing. It is the wood guy AWS or the wood people at the hearings. That's what they brought that up in there. It's basically this what you're
Oh.
already doing anyway. So
this section just brings forward language from the NDS for
Yeah.
Okay.
It correlates the NDS to the IBC.
I like that language.
Okay. And we passed over several other like blue sections. Does anybody have any tracking on stuff that might be significant that we've missed in this report today? So I mean, in some of our other reports, we've kind of covered everything. It has like a new section in here. But if we want to call it all insignificant changes, we don't have to include it in the report.
no, it just on the fire retarded on some of these changes, some of them went to the LRFD factors. That was the thing when they had some of the stuff. It's not an issue.
Gotcha. And it looks like he does have comments on most of these sections, saying that they're kind of editorial.
Yeah, they are. I believe they are all editorial.
That's my understanding as well.
Then I'm gonna just scroll through here pretty quick and make sure there's nothing crazy in here. And then I guess we'd be getting ready to entertain a motion to move this chapter to our master document.
Can I make that now, or do you want to wait till you're done scrolling?
You can go ahead and make it now. That's fine by me.
Great.
I'll make a motion to move it to the master document.
Second.
Josh. Any further discussion on chapter 23? Seeing no hands, hearing no voices, all those in favor of moving chapter 23 to the master document, please say aye.
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 Is there any opposition? All right, seeing no hands, hearing no voices, that motion passes.
Now, the only thing that is, correct me if I'm wrong, that was in the wood, you know, I believe we still have in our state amendments, decks have to be designed for 60 pounds per square foot. It's 1.5 times 40. The tables that are in the national code is only for like decks and stuff is for 40 pounds per square foot. It doesn't include our 60 pounds per square. Now, we did a state amendment that we actually had all those tables. And I believe we kept that table and we kept the design load at 60. Correct me if I'm wrong, in chapter 16. So the tables for decks or cantilever stuff, just so people know that those aren't correct in the IBC because they are with 40 pounds per square foot, not the 60.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
Would you
So
suppose we consider trying to,
now,
amend those in any way? That seems like a
we
pretty
already have that. We had
you do?
we had it in our state code, what I thought, and I couldn't find it. But
So we made those modifications in the IRC tables, which would be the same span dimensions, right? So we could just carry those forward to the IBC tables.
Right, that we did that all. John, I helped. I checked it. We went through design calcs and checked all those things. I hope we didn't make a mistake. I'm sorry, John. That's John Sue. Kind of assigned us to a lot of us. I'm pretty sure it's right. I haven't had anyone complain, but I just want to tell you that most engineers know that. Okay, but just to let you know that on cantilevered systems, when they use for floors, if it's out there for a deck, it has to be 60. So, and I wanted to bring that up in this group. Thank you. That was Tim, I believe, right? Says,
Yeah.
do you want to take the IRC tables that we put in there for the 60 pounds per square foot? Where that came from was really from the old UBC days where we did 1.5 times live load serve. So 1.5 times 40 is 60. Now out of a bedroom, if you have 30 pounds per square foot, there are arguments, well, why can't you use 1.5 times 30, which you could in the UBC days, but you couldn't for now you're at 40 at all decks. So just a little history for people if you're curious.
And I almost wonder if when we get into the proposal phase, Hoy, if we do want to address this, because that seems like you've brought up a really good point where there could be a pretty obvious gap. And I could see somebody less familiar with the history on it arriving at the rationale of, oh, well, IRC, I have to use 60 because it's prescriptive, but IBC, there's an engineer, so I only need to use 40. And that's definitely not the intent. So I do think that might be something we want to flag for the proposal phase. I think it's a really good point.
Yeah, and 99% of the engineers that I know of, I don't think they ever go to these tables. I think they may do it as preliminary,
No.
but most of them all calculate it. I mean, you could go to the tables, obviously, but I'm just telling you, I've always seen calculations. It seems like too much of a hassle to start flipping through tables trying to find for every one of your beams when it's easier just to design it. So.
I think that is true in the majority of cases, but I still think it might be worth proposing some language for it down the road. I suppose that's not needed for this conversation right now.
Well, it's in chapter 16, just FYI,
Yeah.
16, we do have that, the 60 pounds per square foot, because that's our state amendment. I want people in this group to know that these tables don't all meet that when you cantilevering them out for XYZ reasons.
Well, I'm wondering if we should amend chapter 23 to state that the tables either need to be adjusted or use IRC tables or.
Oh, they do. They actually give the loading on there. They tell you what loading pounds per square foot. So all I'm saying is, if you look at all the tables,
Mhm.
I don't think there is a table with 60. Maybe I'm wrong.
I believe you're correct. Only in the IRC, which I just learned from you folks, was the Washington Amendment. So I guess the question becomes, are amendments called to help clarify or only for regulatory change? I guess that's where the difference is, and I'm not familiar. I'm new to this process.
Yeah, so like if you look at 2308.8, allowable girder spans, okay?
Mhm.
All right. So if you have a header or girder that's supporting a deck on an exterior wall for bearing wall, I don't know what page that is, but I could scroll down and tell you what page number it is. It's page 568. Okay. And so you went in there and you're looking at Doug fir, hem fir, southern pine, all that stuff, header and girder spans. The only ones they have is for ground snow load, like 30, 50, 70.
Mhm.
The problem is a lot of people look at these things. Okay, it's exterior, right? You got snow load. You don't have the live load that you're using. And there is no 60, unless I'm wrong. I don't remember a 60 pounds per square foot.
I don't believe there is. And then also, I know this got brought up in yesterday's meeting. I'm looking through the amendments right now, and I'm not seeing the amendment in chapter 16 at this point.
Oh,
So
no,
just to clarify what happened there is we realized the model code did include it, and it included it as the 1.5 times
that's correct.
the loading served. So it's its own line item.
Okay.
If I remember right, it's number 5 or something like that.
Yeah. So it went back to the way, and that came from California to put it in there to make it clearer, because that was because the bedrooms are 30. So
Mhm.
off a balcony, you don't have to use 40. You could use 1.5
Sure.
times 30. And that was the reason why they went back to the old UBC days.
Okay. It sounds like it might not be our calling to make that clarification then, because there are times where those tables, well, I mean, I guess they specifically say, oh, okay, I can let go.
Yeah.
I see where you're going with it, and I don't disagree with you. And I think that should be a model code change now that they've added in the 1.5 times to the loading table in chapter 16.
Agreed.
Yeah, you shouldn't be able to allow to use it for decks. So I don't know. I mean, to be honest, a deck isn't a floor. Well, it's not a floor joist span, right? So you could say, well, unless you're cantilever, it's a complicated. You got to be very savvy to make sure it doesn't get missed. That's all I'm saying.
I suppose, I guess what we can rely on though is those provisions are intended to be used by registered design professionals, and hopefully that those folks are familiar with this, and maybe we're not supposed to, I don't know if we're called here to make sure that they know that they need to make adjustments for special situations.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just telling you the tables don't work in those situations. So you're
Yeah.
right. I mean, it, I'm hoping everyone on this call already knew that, but I'm just telling you to come up here at Tacoma, where I'm like, no, that's not correct, and here's why. So
It's a very good point, and I can already hear my clients trying to tell me, no, look, there's a table here. We don't need this big a choice, but we can move on.
yeah, I've had problems with that.
I wanted to offer to the group, it's 3:01. Does anybody want to take any short bathroom break or anything like that?
Sure.
I would like to, actually, if that's okay.
Okay, let's adjourn till 3:10, and we'll come back and we'll pick it up on chapter 24. I'm gonna start.
Do you have to take roll call, or do you just go on?
I can take a quick roll call. We can just verify to make sure. For people that I'm expecting here, Joe Mayo,
Here.
Chef Orleza,
Here.
Tim Woodard,
Here.
gotcha. Steve Belzak,
Here.
thank you. Dan Young,
Here.
Hoyt Jeter,
Here.
Bill Mybush,
Present.
Joshua Mergens,
Here.
Michael Shaw, Michael Barth,
Here.
Leah Summer, I see her in the room there. Paul Clark.
Here.
And Andy Lianto. Say even with the two people not calling out on those, we still maintain a quorum with this group here. So let me share my screen. All right, so Steve, you did the work on this one, and we will look at chapter 24. We have one amendment here. Or at least I think here, let me get in here. Looks like 2405 is a section where we have glazing. So Steve, am I looking at the right one for you?
I think so. Can you scroll down to see if I should have, we're looking at let's see, that's 20.
So I'm here at section 24, and there's, I don't have any.
That's not the same one that I have.
Okay. Let me close that, and then I will open the one from the email you just sent.
Sure, yeah.
And so I have stuff on 24 and the significant changes.
Yeah, I have it up here, but it'd be nicer if you could get it up on your screen.
So what I have here from it looks like this email just came in from Tim Woodard.
Oh, I see. There's probably two versions of it, maybe. I think Tim sent you an email not too long ago. I think you mentioned you were going to use the version that I put together, which is fine.
Yes. So let me see what we got going on here.
Okay. I'm going to wind up modifying it, simplifying it a bunch anyway, but we could start from there.
Okay, let's see what I have here in this one. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through this off screen.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the stuff that I have saved right here, I'd have to go dig through some emails. Would it be okay if we shared your screen, Steve, and work
Yeah.
on it that way?
Sure. Let me get it going here. And I don't see where to, here we go. Okay. Is that working for you?
I'm not seeing your screen share yet.
Huh. It says I have to upload my workbook to share it. I'm not let's see.
So if you have it open on your screen and you're looking at your Zoom thing, it should just be that share button in the bottom, and it shouldn't require you to upload anything to do that.
Huh. Maybe because I took this off the email, I think that's why. Let's see. Yeah, I've got the share button in the upper right-hand corner, but it says I have to upload it.
Okay.
So at the bottom center of your screen though, Steve, you don't have that other share option?
Take
You
a
got to
peek.
scroll like your mouse down to there, but it'll pop up.
Oh yeah, I do see that, Tim. Should I, maybe that's what I need to do. I'm using a
Yeah,
different.
click that share and it'll show you the
Okay.
different.
Okay. Let's see if that worked. Yeah, you can see it now.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Excel isn't one of my strong points. Okay. All right. Well, you want me to go ahead and go through this, Tim? Or,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Dustin. Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. 24041, I put this down as a significant change, and it's really probably not. They just updated the wind nomenclature to 2024 IBC language. So we really probably don't need to show that as a significant change. Cost factor, no. No amendments needed either. And then if we go down one more to 2406.4.3, there was a height change. And initially, when I looked at this, I go, that's pretty dramatic because in the old code, it had a 25-foot height requirement, and they dropped it down to 8 feet. And I thought, okay, this probably deserves a review to make sure there's some appropriate reason why this happened. And since subsequently after doing this, I did research it a little bit and found out, yes, there is a valid reason. Apparently, in the older version, some people were using considering any exterior glazing up to 25 feet as a hazardous location over 25 feet over like a walking surface. And so they were needlessly putting in tempered glazing or laminated glazing up to 25 feet on the exterior of a building facade. And that was not the intent of this provision. And so what they did is they went ahead and just reduced it down to 8 feet. So an example of where it could apply would be like maybe in an atrium, or let's say you're on you're dealing with a clear story, or you're walking on a occupied roof, and you've got a piece of glass adjacent to where you're walking. They don't want folks to be falling into that through that glass into the building. So they basically said if it's 8 feet or higher, there's the exception for that. So that's, I think staff recommendation isn't needed. I think there's a legitimate reason for why they made the change. There might be actually a slight cost decrease for this. And as far as amendment needed, I would say no, I would change that to no on this. And then if anybody has any questions.
What did you say you changed to no on that one?
Where it says amendment needed.
Okay. Because I do
And-
have this one to show it was on a tab that I wasn't expecting it to be on for this one.
Oh, okay,
It's all good. Let's continue working with what you got going on here. I'm just making sure I'm following.
sure. Okay, no worries. And then we'll go to 2407.1.1. That was also that was a glass guard safety factor. In the old days, or not, maybe not that old, maybe a few months ago, we were using the safety factor of 4 for some of these things, like for glass glazing. We developed the actual criteria needed to evaluate it, and then you would multiply it by 4 or create a safety factor of 4. Well, they changed that and they put in 12,000 PSI and 24. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. They put in a 3,000 PSI factor and a 6,000 PSI factor, and I was trying to relate that back to the safety factor of 4. And so I said, we need to review this to make it consistent. Well, that was not right. We don't need to review it. The reason is, as an example, heat strengthened glass does have a value of 12,000 PSI. And what they did to make the code work is they just divided it by 4. And so in the code language itself, it says 3,000 PSI. And they did the same thing with regard to fully tempered glass, which has an actual allowable stress factor of 24,000 PSI. They just took a quarter of that and said, okay, it has to meet 6,000, which is doing the same thing as adding a safety factor of 4, but it's much more precise. And one of the reasons I understand that why the change was promulgated was because of the imprecision involved in trying to apply a safety factor. Safety factor to what? So now they have it in the code. So it's really much better. Doesn't need to be reviewed for consistency. As far as a cost factor, I would say there's none. And there's no need to review the rationale. And so there's no need to amend it.
Yeah, and just one more thing to add on that too. That's a working stress calc, just FYI. It's not ultimate. That's one of the things that glazing people have been a little bit behind on the ultimate design. So that's the other reason why that safety factor is like what you're saying, because it's a working stress, not an ultimate. So
excellent. Okay. So really there's probably no significant changes. None of these items actually probably really apply if you want to keep it simple.
Okay.
And I don't know if you wanted to go through the chapter 20, the Word document as well.
Well, I've got it here. I can share it if you want.
Yeah, I could probably simplify that somewhat too if you want to do that. It won't take too long.
As far as simplifying the Word document.
Well, there's because I made comments in there that probably no longer need to be put in there.
Okay.
So you want me to stop sharing?
I will just kick you off of it.
Okay, there we go. It worked.
So I have what he was just showing here on the left. Just before we move on from it, we changed this one to no here. Did we make any changes within this section, or do I have that?
Yeah, review rationale. You could say no in that, and for that category, and below it, it already says no, and then to the left, for cost implications, you could say no.
Okay.
Just keep it simple. There you go.
We're good there. And then I also started updating this section here in this is what I was considering the existing amendment report. So we have an existing amendment to 2405.3.
Yes, that's correct. And we did, if you scroll down, to, I think, my comment on that.
Let me zoom it out so I can
Oh,
see it.
I'm sorry, on the chapter 24 Word document.
I gotcha.
There you go. I said this section is a rewritten format. And I first looked at it, I thought, oh boy, there's all kinds of changes here, but they're not. They just reworded everything. So that what's in the blue contains everything that's in the green. It's just reworded and actually, I think, worded more appropriately.
So would the recommendation be to repeal this amendment because the model code language absorbs all the requirements?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
All right. If we we're gonna keep scrolling down. I'll see if there's got other comments in there as well.
I
which
thought I
may
saw
not be-
something about the appendix one. That's an important one about sleeping lofts.
Yeah, he did the
That's-
work on that one. I was going to propose we hit that next after we get done with chapter 24.
Okay, got it. Good. Yeah. I
Yeah.
know a lot about that one. So just
Oh,
if you're
good.
curious.
Okay. Just keep scrolling there, Justin. Okay. There said note text, text change from 25 feet, 8 feet. That's what we already discussed. So you don't even need to address that. And then up a little bit more, up a little bit.
Give me 1 second. I had a dog escape.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back. Apologies. I've got puppies in the house, and one of them started pestering the old dog who wasn't having it.
Oh boy. You're multitasking, doing
I'll
very
try.
well. All right, so this note says safety factor, that also can be eliminated because we've addressed that. That's taken care of. It's not an issue.
Okay.
It just is what it says. Okay, then you can scroll down a little more.
And that's it.
No, I think there's more. It's just there's big, or is that it? That is the bottom. Okay. There are big blanks in this thing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So
Anytime we add a line, there's page breaks inserted inside the
Oh, I get it.
document,
Yeah.
and it just
Yeah. It
wreaks
just
havoc.
bumps
So,
everything down. Yeah.
instead
There's
of
a way
trying
to fix that, but I don't know if I remember that anymore. But anyway, okay.
what I do is what I've been doing is coming in here, put the cursor and hit delete on there,
Mhm.
and it brings it up in there.
That's the technique. I think the cursor has to be ahead of it. Yeah,
Yeah, if it's in front of it, you can't backspace over it.
that's right. That's right. Okay. Well, that's that then for 24. It was pretty simple.
Okay, so on that one, we'll entertain a motion to move chapter 24 to our master document.
I'll make a motion to move chapter 24 to the master document.
Second.
Okay. Any additional discussion before we do not a roll call, a voice vote on that? Seeing no hands, no voices. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition to that? Hearing none, that motion passes. And we're going to move to Appendix P now, which is sleeping lofts.
And I know lots about that. So just FYI, I help work on that.
So we're going to close that. We'll save. And then Appendix P coming up. And we'll be working off of the same sheet here. And
can I give, while you're pulling that up, I'll just give a little history of what it was. When we took this to the national code, okay, we had two proposals. One put it as appendix, or one put it in the model code. We're getting lots of projects in Tacoma that are putting these sleeping lofts in there. There's a lot of requirements for sleeping rooms, things like that, egress, et cetera, like these. These are small spaces. I mean, people at the national hearing saying these are bunk beds. Well, they're not bunk beds. It's actually a sleeping loft. Some people says, well, what about kitchens that have cabinets on it? Isn't that a loft that someone could go sleep on there? It was a totally misunderstanding. But to make sure we got it into the code, we addressed it in two methods. One put it in the model code, or one put it in the appendix. And so we weren't sure which one we'll get. So they didn't get it in the model code, but they did get it in the appendix because they did recognize that this is something that is being done throughout for more density in more of the larger cities. Seattle has these, we have them in Tacoma, things like that. So I don't know if anyone's actually gone through all of it. I know I have, because I helped work on this from before. I think, Tim, you know about this too. Tim, you remember us working on this thing for these sleeping lofts. This is, this is one of those things you know, obviously for residential, you can't adopt, appendix has to be adopted by ordinance, and since it's single family homes and stuff, I believe the state has to approve it also. But I was just hoping this is something if people wanted to look at, and I'm not sure if people have not reviewed this, if this is something we want to put into our state code, because we are getting these things, sleeping lofts. So I guess my question would be, you know, our state access has to specifically adopt appendix. Those are actually, correct me if I'm wrong, please. That's the way I always understood it. And, you know, this appendix is not this appendix P is not adopted at this time. So I guess the question is, if people haven't reviewed that or like to, it's just kind of dealing with sleep, you know, lofts in a building, you know, how do you deal with egress? How do you deal with all these different things? So, hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And kind of follow up on that, we did make all these changes, most of these changes at least, into the IRC. So people are already using these sleeping lofts, but we don't have provisions for it in the IBC yet. So I also agree that I hope somebody puts forward a proposal to add Appendix P into the state code so that we don't have to adopt it locally, but we could also just adopt it locally, you know, for that appendix. But in regards to what we're doing now and what Steve's work has been on, it was just the state amendments because we have adopted Appendix P, but Appendix P had to change appendixes because, as you mentioned, Hoyt, WABO was successful in getting sleeping lofts added as Appendix P. So now, or Appendix Q had to change to Appendix P because WABO was successful getting the sleeping lofts added. So now we got to deal with the state amendment and change it up a little bit.
Yeah, I would say that as far as the insertion of this, there's not much that we'd have to change in here. I don't think we want to change any of the construction and demolition material management stuff based on the input I have so far on it. But I would say that the sleeping lofts should be P, and we would just move the state amendment after sleeping lofts. If we did it the other way around and rename this Q, then we have to come in and modify all this section and modify the state amendment section. Well, I guess we don't have to modify that section if it remains the same, but I would be of mind to leave sleeping lofts as P and renumber this one as section Q or appendix Q.
I'm sorry, you confused me. Can
So
you?
The extent of what we're dealing with right now, Hoyt, is what to do with the existing Appendix P that was in the state model code, which is
Got
the
it. Got it.
construction and
Got it.
demolition.
Got it. Got it. Okay, got it now. Now I understand. So basically, you just change everything from P to Q. I mean, that would
correct.
be, yeah.
This
I mean, that's-
one, and then as far as that significant change, we would need a proposal to adopt this as a state for the local jurisdictions to use.
Which I do hope somebody makes that proposal because it's been vetted pretty hard and it's been being used already. So yeah.
I don't see why there, you know, if we don't see one, anybody in this group could put that proposal forward as well.
Yeah.
All right, so appendix Q for sleeping lofts, proposal needed to adopt as a state. I'm going to add a new line in here for the appendix. I'm actually going to rename this one appendix P, and then I'll put in additional lines for another appendix P, and we'll change the number in title. The construction reviewer. Get this so it's not in our way. Okay, reviewer comments. Just let it renumber to fit after new appendix P is what I'm going to put in here. Station, leave that alone. Cost, no, no. And I think we should be good with the appendices at this point.
Perfect.
Sounds
So,
good.
for this one, I would say a motion to move both Appendix P and Q for the sleeping lofts and construction and demolition management, construction and demolition material management to our master document.
Well, why would we move the sleeping lofts if it takes a proposal to get it in?
Oh, well, it's a significant change to the appendices, and I think it would be prudent to include it in the significant changes section.
So I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any additional discussion on that before we move it? Alrighty, hearing none. All those in favor of moving appendixes P and Q, sleeping lofts, and construction and demolition material management to our master document, please say aye.
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 Thank you. And is there any opposition to that? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Just want to thank you, Dustin, and thank you, Tim. It's my first rodeo here, so appreciate it.
Steve, you got the 8 seconds on that ride. All right, so
Yeah, we worked really hard on this thing, just FYI, that sleeping loft. So if any of you that are on this call have not read through it, if you find any problems with it or something like that, please let us know. It took a long time to get this. We're hoping to get this eventually into the model code, but the appendix was the appropriate place through the national codes. So.
all right. So let's see here. Just updating our spreadsheet so it stays good to go. Four, and then the appendix. All right, looking here, Hoyt, I think that covers the stuff that we had published online for the meeting. Let's see here. I've got more from Brett Conway on chapter 29. But what I'd like to do is back up to chapters 1, 2, and 3, and then follow up with 14 and 15 for the stuff that we have back from you, Hoyt. And for that one, I have your spreadsheet and I'm opening it up. I do have a little bit of questions on it, but we can cover those as we go. So I'm going to open up chapter 1 first, and give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, I created this on my own, trying to do it. So sorry if it wasn't.
That's okay.
I was trying to make it as clear, and you can see I have significant. It was just wasn't sure how the best way to do it. So it was clear to me, but clear to an engineer, as my wife will tell you, it's not always clear to other people.
Did you send any Word documents over on these?
No, I think that was it right there. So
No worries.
Sorry about
So the chapter 1 Word document that we're looking at is going to have some stuff from Stoyan on it. He was working on this before he left. And so we'll just cruise through it with what we have going here. Before I get going, there's some stuff out here to the side. Is this going to be stuff that we need to look at frequently as we go through this?
Oh no, it was just notes to myself, kind of out to the side. It just kind of gave some links and things like that. That was it. It was just more. Those are just for my own information. That's actually was 100% copied right out of the code, just FYI.
Okay.
So that over there on the far right is exactly what it says in the code. If you didn't have the code to open up, that was all it was.
Okay. Gotcha. I just wanted to ask before, and if you need me to go over there for any reason, just holler and I'll get over there and open it up and we can take a peek. Let me wrap the text. Oh, I broke it. What the heck? We're gonna Control Z that. We'll stay here like that. Okay, scrolling through, you didn't do any of the preface on here at all. And don't worry about that. I'll take care of the preface. That's part of what I had on my thing. So skipping in.
Oh yeah,
Stoyan.
yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
didn't go in. Yeah, I didn't go and do all that kind of stuff. I figured that was just going to come back from the other stuff. So
No worries. And as far as significant changes in this report, I just have 101.4.2. So we'll go through it. How about I'll just have you, we'll go to 104.4.2 and we'll move. So Stoyan's got some new stuff here. Some amendment specifies the title of the Washington State Building Code. This is something we need a proposal on, so we don't need to talk about it. These are all proposed new amendments, it looks like. And Stoyan wasn't using the color scheme and markup scheme that we have established in here either. So I'm gonna scroll to 104.4.2. And I guess he's got a lot of proposed amendments throughout this code here that we haven't really discussed very much.
well, what it was changing all of it. I remember him talking about. He talked to me. It's just changing it to the Washington. There was a lot of the changes. So
Yeah.
But didn't we have that conversation already that the
yeah,
amount of
yeah,
We
work
did.
yeah,
we weren't in favor of it?
yeah.
So as we get ready to, so these Word documents we're using as kind of preparation for submitting for publication documents with ICC. So all the stuff that's included in here is not really intended to be included in our report. It's just some more working stuff as we get ready to make the modifications to it and get ready to send it to ICC. Oh, 4.4.2. Is there a 104.4.2? Or I guess this is an existing amendment. Hold on. Since I'm scrolling through Stoyan stuff, I need to back up here. So I'm not showing an amendment in this code section. Am I looking, is this for the IEBC that I'm looking at right here, potentially?
I think that question's for Hoyt, right?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I thought I was unmuted. Sorry about that. But yeah, these beginning ones were IEBC, but then I went back to IEBC, International Existing Building Code. And I just went through each one of the chapters and saying what to keep and what to keep. So like previous occupied, that was in our state amendments, 101.4.2. And that was buildings previously occupied. That actually that's different. That's in the WAC actually. I believe if you go to the WAC, it talks about previously occupied buildings based on a certain time frame when they're occupied. I believe that aren't you looking at the Washington State or the significant changes that are in the?
Yes, so I mean, we would be looking at the significant changes in here, but I was anticipating this being the existing amendments review on this page. And when I get in here to the existing amendments online.
Yeah, but you're in the IBC. I'm talking the IEBC, right?
Oh,
You're in the wrong section. We're in the IEBC, aren't we?
okay. So I had this labeled here, chapter 14, chapter 15.
Those are IBC.
Right, and I assumed above those would also be IBC.
That's correct.
And below here we have IEBC stuff.
That's correct. Yeah, IEBC, right.
So
So didn't you have previously occupied in 104.4.2? There was, you're looking, if you look at the state in the IEBC 2021, you should keep that as the same for the 2024, what we had in our state thing.
Okay. So I guess I have a little bit of confusion in here. So as far as a state amendment, yes, we do have 101.4.2 in section 104 of the IEBC, but I don't have that an amendment for this section in the IBC. And
No,
so
it's the IEBC there. If you look at it, as you,
I guess I'm not quite following because this, you said that this section here that I have highlighted was IBC stuff.
no, that's in the beginning. Hang on, let me open it. Oh, shoot. Maybe I have it wrong. What did I say? 104.4.2. I thought in the 2021, state had that.
So let's see. In the state, I'm just going to open up the stuff we have online.
Was that reference 104.4.2?
Yeah, I think that there's just something goofed up here, and maybe this, let's see, 101 point, because that's all out of order there. And
Yeah, I
101
stopped at, I actually just go to chapter 14. That was the one.
Okay. I can do that.
Yeah. So I think you said chapter 1 I wasn't really looking at when I was
No,
starting to
not
go
really.
through that.
I did have my name on them, and then you submitted this, and I thought it was going to cover some stuff, but I haven't.
Yeah, and
started on that
it's
one.
in the that was in the beginning of the IEBC, existing building code. So, but okay. So weather protection. Yeah, that's 1402.2.
Okay, give me 2 seconds to get open the chapter here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. At first I didn't do it very well.
All right.
Dustin, Steve here. I need to sign off for about 15 minutes. I need to make some phone calls for an end of business, so I'll be back shortly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that doesn't affect your quorum status. That one.
Yeah, that just basically just says 1404.2 is the weather protection. That was there's some minor changes, but it basically meets exactly what our state building code says.
All right. Moving, so move existing amendment 1402.2. Let me get the amendment stuff pulled up here real quick.
Yeah, I went through this a long time ago and I've just forgot.
All right, so in section 1402.2 weather protection, I have the amendment pulled up here. As far as your recommendation on this one,
It's the same.
it's the same as, so the recommendation would be to remove the amendment because the model code language covers it.
It's just reserved.
Okay.
Yeah, it basically says the same thing.
Okay. I like it. And then,
And then 1404 or 1402. That's model code minor costs. I don't think there's any, this doesn't really change anything.
okay. And then our WAC in 1403 is reserved. And anything in 1403 you're recommending to keep?
Yeah, just keep the
Okay. Similar.
pretty much chapter 14. There's nothing in there. I think it's all the code is really clear on this thing.
Yeah, the rest of the state amendments sections are reserved in here as you got indicated.
Yeah.
And then is the recommendation to keep all of the model code changes?
Yeah.
Okay. So with that statement, we would be open to a motion to move chapter 14 to our master document.
I will go ahead and make that motion, but I will say, I don't really feel like I looked very hard at what all those changes were or have any clue
Okay.
what they were.
Well,
So,
do you want to take a little bit more time to scroll through them and just take a look at them?
well, I think your point about us getting another look at these in the future is ringing in my head, and we've had one of our members, at least Hoyt, review these and not see any changes. So I'm comfortable moving it forward, I suppose. I just, in the back of my mind, I'm going, I thought we would be kind of touching on them a little bit more, you know.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just FYI for it. They didn't really, if you go into the model code, there's no lines by it or anything like that. They just, it was pretty, I think it was pretty minor stuff. So,
All righty. Do we have a second on the motion?
You mind scrolling up to the top of 1409 there? Just looks like that's a whole new section. What's that about?
Insulated metal panels.
that's insulated metal panels. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I still muted? No, that's just insulated metal panels. We don't have anything in our state for that. These are new products that have come into the into the code.
Yeah.
And to me, I didn't think there was a reason to make a state amendment to them when I read through them, or I couldn't think of a reason.
I think
They
I
all make
totally
them
agree with
listed.
you.
Yeah, I mean, they're all listed. They've been vetted in the on the national. One of the big things, just FYI, was the wind loadings, but that came from the south more than from the standard building code. It affects us, but we would have to design it for anyway. So usually wind doesn't control except for components and cladding, but I mean, that's not a big deal in my opinion.
So this seems very similar to the steel section where they just added more, I guess, processes.
That's exactly what they did. What they did.
No
Yeah.
real changes though.
Yeah.
Got
What I'm saying, well, there are changes, but it's nothing that I think we should modify at a state level.
Gotcha.
That's the way I looked at it. I could not, when I look at something when I looked at it, if it should be modified, if I see something state specific for us to modify it. And one of the big things that talked about the solar panel stuff, some of this stuff, we already have this stuff already in the projects that I've done when they put these solar panels on these integrated photo things. It's a new technology and they're all listed. So I didn't think it was a problem.
All right, that's the end of chapter 14. Do we want to go back and look at any of this a little closer? So we still have a motion from Tim on the table to move this chapter to our master document. Do we want to have a second for that one?
Second, this is Josh.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on chapter 14? Seeing no hands, hearing no voices. All those in favor of moving this to our master document, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposition to that? The motion passes.
And then
Go ahead.
I skipped 15 and went right into the IEBC just because I thought that would to get to those. So you could see that.
Gotcha. So chapter 15 has no amendments to it. Did you run through that one at all by chance? Or does it
Absolutely. It did. We don't need any amendments for that. That's all roof assemblies and stuff. So
Okay.
chapter 15 is, unless someone else knows of a state amendment, I don't know of any that has affect that for, you know, that it's a change. So.
Stoyan had some work on this one as well, so I guess.
Well, I mean, the only thing that is we don't do the plumbing code. So,
right.
I mean, but I figured that wasn't a big deal. So,
No. So with that kind of picture painted on chapter 15, could we entertain a motion to move chapter 15 to our master document, or do we want to review this a bit more?
If you just want to scroll, everything I'm seeing so far is just clarification for sure. This
Okay.
looks new.
Say what, those page breaks make this a lot longer.
I mean, the one thing I did is I actually stopped and kind of went to the IEBC to deal with a lot. So, just at some of this, but I didn't think there was any on 15, anything that we needed to deal with when I read through it.
Do we want to move that chapter 15 just for the sakes of marking green down on our spreadsheet that we can move this to the master document?
Sure. I make a motion to move it to the master document, and we're just using pretty much what the state has said. I mean, what the national codes have put in.
Gotcha. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay.
As far as discussion, it looked like a lot of that earlier stuff in the tables had a lot to do with hurricanes and hurricane prone regions. So I don't think a lot of those changes, oftentimes that's like one code change proposal that goes through and they just kind of add a whole lot of stuff that means very
That's
little
correct.
to in Washington. So
No, that's correct. That's exactly where it's high wind areas. They did it where seismic is. The only thing I looked at, because we do have a little tornado zone area in the corner of Washington, where we could get tornadoes. And so I just checked that, see if there was an issue with any of these, and I didn't see a problem with it. So
Okay.
All right.
So all those in favor of moving chapter 15 to the master document, please say aye.
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 Is there any opposition? Seeing no hands, hearing no voices, that motion passes. And you want to move to the IEBC on this one now, Hoyt?
If people are up for it, I'm fine with that.
I'm up for it because we got it open here. I just gotta switch to a different chapter as far as the Word document goes, but I'm definitely up for it.
Just out
Alright,
of
so we're looking-
curiosity, Dustin, there was,
Yep.
we kind of stopped at chapter 24, but I believe that I had sent you chapter 25, 26, and 27.
Let's see what I have here in the doodad.
'Cause there's not really any much changes in those either. So
Yeah, we should finish IBC before we go to IEBC, if it's possible.
I'm up for that. If the group wants to wrap up with IBC, we can continue that. So let's see. So I do have chapter 25, 26, 27 in here. And Tim, I did get I guess a big Excel spreadsheet that has all those on it, is what I'm looking at.
I believe two of the chapters, and I can't remember which ones, but they didn't have any significant changes nor state amendments in them. So I didn't see the rationale behind doing the spreadsheet on those. So I think the
Gotcha.
spreadsheet you have is only for one chapter.
Okay. Then we'll see that. Oh. I have a restricted access document here. Not so sure. Let me get out. Chapter 27 is the one that I have the spreadsheet on. So would you say that 25, by the merit of me not having the spreadsheet, doesn't have any significant changes nor amendments to it?
That should be correct.
Yes, I don't have it marked as a chapter with amendments. Same with chapter 26. And then we can just scroll through it here pretty quick. It's 10 pages long. Has some blue text in it.
Yeah, I do have some like comments in there on at least explaining a couple things as it comes up, but it's really a nothing chapter. So there's my first comment, and it just addresses a lot of the changes ahead of it. Where if you look at it, they've changed all the references that used to say gypsum board to gypsum panel products. So it's quite simply just a clarification aspect.
Gotcha.
It might have been the only comment even in that chapter.
Yeah, one more here.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so yeah, the previous wording required a drainage space, and they modified that to say allow for drainage. So essentially kind of to account for products that maybe don't require a spacing.
Gotcha. And that's it for chapter 25. We're ready for a motion on that one.
Make a motion to approve as shown on the screen.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of moving chapter 25 to our master document, please say aye.
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 there any opposition? Hearing none, that motion passes. Moving to chapter 26, give me 2 seconds. And this one is similarly afflicted with some changes that are mainly identified as editorial and non-substantive.
100%.
And this one's 16 pages, so it'll take slightly longer to scroll through. So on this comment, you're maybe making a suggestion for a definition.
No. Oh, I am saying it would be beneficial if they did. But I researched these types of, I guess, scenarios, and they're basically like a walk-in cooler, but they're like warming stations or cooling stations, depending on your climate, or say the homeless or something to that effect. So that said, it was kind of, it took me a while to figure out what they were trying to say, because a climate structure could be anything in my mind. And why wouldn't that just be a walk-in cooler? But they just took the exact same requirements for a walk-in cooler and put them here. So it makes a lot of sense. It doesn't do anything different, but it seems like it would clear up a lot of confusion, that if they could tell us what a climate structure was instead of people having to research it, it'd probably make a lot more sense.
Okay. So if we wanted to do something like that, we would just have to mark it for a proposal in the future. Do you want to include a comment like that in chapter 26?
I mean, what does the group think? Do you think we would benefit by having that climate structure defined and coming up with a definition for it?
I wish I had more to contribute, but it's outside there of my expertise.
So if you were engineering a climate structure versus a exterior walk-in cooler, you would engineer them the exact same way. So it doesn't really benefit to create a definition when in reality you enforce the code the exact same way for insulation on them as well. Again, I could just go either way. So
So I guess the question for the group is, do we want to mark this section as potentially needing a definition included in chapter 2, or for a proposal in the future?
I'll just go with my initial thought, which is yes. And that's just because it took me a while to figure out what this was.
Okay. Moving on from this, I'll clean these up as far as making them look pretty for the master document. And that brings us to the end of chapter 27. We would be looking for a motion to include chapter 27 into our master document.
So moved.
Second.
Just to clarify, it's 26, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So who was who was so moved?
Second, no, it's Hoyt. Sorry.
Wait. And who was our second?
We'll go with Josh, even though he
Yeah.
was technically first.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll be second
Oh,
now.
that, yeah,
No worries.
I was sorry. I was a second. I thought you asked a second. I so moved it, so I was second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of moving chapter 26 to our master document, please say aye.
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 Is there any opposition to that? Hearing none, that motion passes. And now we can get to chapter 27. That. All right, in chapter 27, we have one amendment, 2702. Let me get that open somewhere. Looks like that's the only whack in here. So 2702.1.5 for load duration. We have the amendment. The recommendation is to keep it. And then for significant changes, we have 2703 lighting protection system. So we'll scroll through here. So it looks like this is 2702.1.5. Carry forward the WAC from the previous code cycle. The load duration was increased to 8 hours in accordance with NFPA 20 for the fire pumps. Does anybody have any comments on that state amendment? All right, and I will continue moving forward. (2703) within the significant changes report. Looks like it does bring some cost in here, and looks like a, amendment is identified as being needed. Limit where lighting protection systems can be installed and how to interconnect those systems. This may increase costs. However, that would be negligible and never requires the system to be installed. It just outlines when you shouldn't and if you should choose what all should be connected to it. So do we want to mark this, leave this as definitely needed in the amendment in here? That's okay, or do we have any additional comments we want to add to the recommendation?
I would just say that I think I mistakenly put yes, that an amendment is needed. That's supposed to be no. My recommendation is just to keep it, so.
Then I think that trims down the discussion we need to have on potential amendment. We would be ready, I guess, at this point to entertain a motion to move chapter 27 towards our master document.
I'll motion. It's Paul.
Okay.
I'll second. This is Bill.
All righty. All All those in favor of moving chapter 27 to our master document, please say aye.
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 Are there any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. Gets saved. That gets closed. 7 gets moved. Okay. So we're getting close to the end here. Let's see. As far as chapters I have back at the moment, let's see here. I've got chapter 11, which was worked on by Brett Conway, but I also noticed that what am I looking for here? I believe it is Michael Shaw was on with us. I don't see him anymore. Anyway, he's on our panel as the persons with disability or accessibility experts. I was going to say maybe we could cover chapter 11 with his presence. Let's see, going back to our chapters. So I have chapter 29 from Brett here as well. Do we want to go ahead and review that without him being here today?
So 29 is the plumbing fixture count, right? Our plumbing section.
Correct. Let's see what he's got in here. Wrong spreadsheet. All right. Not a lot of significant changes. So it looks like he's done some changes here to change the Washington State Code. This looks like work that Stoyan may have done on this chapter before passing it along. Do we need a potential amendment in this section? I don't necessarily know if we do. Let's see.
Well, our state member has their own because we don't use the International Plumbing Code. We use the Uniform Plumbing Code. And I don't think they're 100% accurate. So our whole state is changed. I mean, just FYI, the I codes are 100% not. The International Plumbing Code is not, like, for example, the you can't use air admittance valves without
Engineer.
approval without approval by building officials because the Uniform Plumbing Code doesn't allow air admittance valves. But it does for the I code. So there's some other differences too. So so that's why the chapter 29 of the IBC is right out is the International Plumbing Code. So copy right out of the IPC. So we got to use the Uniform Plumbing Code to get it correct. I haven't gone through it myself because I just go to the Uniform Plumbing Code. I don't even open up the International Plumbing Code.
So,
yeah.
So one of the things I'd point out is Dustin so helpfully opened up the WAC for us. It seems like the changes that we made in the WAC could be brought over, say in green writing, and we just accept those because what it says is the state plumbing code. So It kind of generalizes it even more than the Washington State Plumbing Code. But it does get rid of the International Plumbing Code, which is what's brought up that we need to do.
Right.
So then we wouldn't need to make all those amendments that Stoyan, whoever else is suggesting in red. Instead, we could just carry forward 2901.1 of the WAC and be done with it.
That's correct. That's exactly what I was trying to say, because if you look at it a lot, like the drinking fountains, I think we have it different in the Uniform Plumbing Code. I could be wrong, but there's some changes in it. I'd have to open it up. I don't remember the top of my head. I don't even go to this. It's all based on the Uniform Plumbing Code.
Yeah. Hoyt, I think what you're remembering is the IPC allows you to use bottled water coolers to substitute.
That's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is.
I think
Yep.
it's 50% or something like that, but the UPC doesn't.
Yeah,
And I don't remember what we decided in 29.
Yeah, I can't either.
Okay, so let's see, pull that down. As far as 2901, keep the amendment. So on, well, I guess Brett's not here to answer, but I was curious if this is work done by Stoyan before this chapter was handed out, or if Brett maybe made those changes. But so we need to, I guess the recommendation of the tag here is to just maintain the state amendment as is and maybe entertain the proposal to change to Washington State in the future.
Yes, I would have no issue changing it to Washington State, but just seems easier and no amendments needed if we just maintain the existing state amendment.
Dustin, Steve here, and I'm back. So just so you're aware.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I was just looking, the guest list looks a little trim, but I just verified we still have quorum at the moment. Okay, 2901.2 and 2901.3 with the recommendation to keep both of these amendments. We'll move on from there. Let me just make sure I'm orientated correct here. Move into 2902.1. Amendments added to model code. So the hold on, I guess we've got to look at the WAC on this one. 2902.1.
Yeah, so it's just that one sentence at the end, and it just happens to be in red. You should have it in green, and we would just keep it.
Oh. I guess I got it in the wrong color green.
Close enough.
There we go. Okay. Looks good to me. 2902.1 again is. So in this report here, I got 2902.1. Oh, and then the table, sorry. Wasn't reading that part. Keep existing amendment, replace table A with Washington's version. I guess Washington's.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. This whole table is from the Uniform Plumbing Code. So I thought separate facilities, we had state amendments on that too. It's for the all gender stuff, yeah.
Yeah,
We do. We have a lot of amendments here that essentially need to stay.
Yeah.
We do have a couple that have some conflicting issues, but I don't know if now probably isn't when we're struggling for time, now isn't the time to bring some of those up.
Yeah. So speaking of time, we have 4 minutes left in our allotted session here today, and I want to be respectful of that. And I think maybe holding off on chapter 29 before we get too deep in it would be a prudent. But I also want to bring to the attention of the tag that, kind of where we're at and where the other tags are at in their work as well. So today I've been changing our lines to green. So this spreadsheet's looking a lot better than it did when we started today. So I applaud us for making some movement today. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is that, we've got one more meeting on the books before these would be supposed to be delivered to the committees. The Open Public Meetings Act would require us to have this document ready by tomorrow to submit and have available for public digestion before our meeting. And so there was talk of just moving the committee meetings, but if we move the committee meetings, we run into the same problem with the documents being available for the public from the committee meeting to our council meeting. And so right now there hasn't been any decision made, but we're looking at pushing out this work one more month with the potential to open up proposals at this council meeting this month. And so right now I'm anticipating having a final decision made with some input from the chairs and some other council members this Friday to make the official call. Otherwise, we're looking at bringing pretty much a partial report to the committees to try to get that approved and then pushed up to the council. And then we'll be still looking at polishing this up while the proposal period is open. And just as so I can have the best informed perspective on this, how does this group feel about pushing it out a little bit more, and what is their feeling on opening proposals before this report is available for public to digest?
I don't see any harm in opening the proposal window prior to this being completed. At least that way you can overlap the timeframes a little bit.
Yep. Is there any more comments or concerns on that? Because to be frank, my desire on it is to push it out so that we have a complete report when we bring it to the committees and then to the council. All right, so I guess hearing no more on that one.
Well, I mean,
Go ahead.
I'm all for having it totally complete. I mean, the problem is when you submit things that aren't complete, it just opens up more cans. You know what I'm saying? Just start getting a lot more questions. I mean, how close are we to be complete?
Well, I think that as far as going over the remaining chapters that we have in the IBC and then looking at the IEBC, I think that we're probably one meeting for sure, 2 meetings away from getting all that work done. That is also to say that the chapters that we don't have in yet do come in. So Tim, while I have you here, I don't know if this is a mistake on chapter 30 and 31, but I have your name.
It's not a mistake on 30. I don't have it on my list to complete 31, but I don't mind doing it.
Okay.
So I'll try to get those to you by the end of the day tomorrow.
Okay, awesome. And then Hoyt, I have you for 33, and I don't think we have anything that contains 33 from you. Is
No.
that a mistake on our list by chance?
No, I actually didn't remember 33, so I'll look. I'll get to that. I'll work on it. So
Okay, awesome. And then Joshua, I got you. Is Joshua still here? Yes.
Yep.
I got you for 35, and I think we're just kind of holding out on that one as we go through this code. That's what I have, I guess, in my notes on a different meeting page.
Yes. However, I am working through it and I expect to have that ready for our next meeting.
Okay. And then as far as chapter 28 and 32 goes, I'm not sure why those don't have an assignment on them at the moment. Does anybody have bandwidth to maybe just take a quick look at them? Both of those chapters don't have any amendments, so and I assume that because we don't have anybody assigned to them, that they are probably pretty quick hits on those. Do we have anybody here that could maybe absorb taking a look at those?
I get. You mean chapter 28? You're talking about?
Yeah, well, chapter 28 and 32, there are two lines that we don't have any names on.
Yeah, since I have to do 33, I could do 32. 32 also.
Okay.
And I'll do 28, and then that way we're covered.
Awesome. Thank you. And
Do you
then
mind sending
go ahead.
that chapter? You mind sending that chapter in chapter 31 to me too? Again,
Yes.
I have 30, and maybe I have 31. I just don't remember that.
So Tim, you need 30 and 28.
I need 31 and 28.
1 and
I have
28.
30.
And then Hoyt, you need chapter I'm sorry, 32 or 33.
Yeah,
made
if you
the
could
change.
just send them to me one more time, just do it in one email, that'd be great. So,
32.
which email do you have actually? Do you have my city of Tacoma?
Let me double check what we have going on here.
That's what was on the contact list.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Okay. And then as far as 1, 2, and 3, I've been starting to work on these, but don't have them in the stuff we were looking at today. So it'll be my goal to get chapters 0 through 4 wrangled and out there for everybody here, hopefully by the next meeting. And so then the painting the picture, once we complete all this, staff has to integrate these all into the master document, and there's some polished work that goes into that, and it's a little time consuming. And so the ask I'm probably going to be looking for is to push out a whole month on this and open proposals at the council meeting is kind of my feeling on that. And if there's some folks here who have the bandwidth to attend the council meeting this month, to maybe speak on opening proposals and pushing out for what we got going on, just kind of some additional input and maybe support on that front would be welcome, just to help us get there. So with that, does anybody else have anything for the good of the order? All right, I'm seeing no hands, hearing no voices. So I will render this meeting adjourned.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks
Yeah,
all.
Thanks everybody for the
Everyone-
work today. I
everyone have a-
really appreciate it.
Yeah, everyone have a good day.
Yep,
Thank
you
you.
too.
You.